Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Got a very interesting show today. Krystal, what's going on?
So much good stuff. We have Reverend William Barber on the show today to talk about Poor People's Campaign. That'll be awesome. I'm looking at the debate, UBI, Freedom Dividend versus the Federal Jobs Guarantee.
Rock the world.
You know, I'm a little nervous wading into it, but we're just going to dive right in. You're looking at Joe Biden.
That's right.
New poll has Yang higher than Buttigieg. We got to talk about that and more today on Rising.
Good morning, everybody. Krystal, what's on your radar?
Well, as with many of the things that I do and say, this is probably ill-advised, but as the kids say, you only live once. So here are my thoughts on the true third rail of American politics: universal basic income versus a federal jobs guarantee. So I think some background is in order here. Automation, in my view, and in the view of many economists, poses a true existential threat to both blue-collar and white-collar workers, the kind of threat that could truly lead to the complete unraveling of a society. So in my book, Reversing the Apocalypse, I lay out how the top three most common jobs in the nation are retail sales clerk, cashier, and essentially fast food worker. Those are all, of course, low-wage jobs. They're all threatened by automation, and all, incidentally, jobs in which the workers are treated as disposable cogs rather than, actual human beings. That's right, Yang Gangers. I was writing about automation and UBI before you even knew Andrew Yang existed. Now, I believe the central dividing line in American life is between those who happen, like myself, to be in the celebrated creative class, where we're treated as special flowers and have our every whim, from 2 a.m. sustainable sushi to $40 a pop boutique exercise classes catered to, and those who are doing the catering to the special flowers in the creative class, who literally risk their lives trying to deliver that sushi and mop the floors of sweat after the Lululemon-clad buns have left the room. Those who are essentially treated as disposable by our society. That divide between those treated as humans and those not is only set to grow. Some of us are told to follow our dreams and find work that's fulfilling. And the vast majority of us are told to suck it up because life is nasty, brutish, and short. This is a landscape that's already hellish enough to have basically made us into a nation of addicts, whether it's drugs, alcohol, food, our phones, video games, or porn. You'd be hard-pressed to find any person who isn't indulging in some unhealthy habit to try to numb their pain. Needless to say, adding the kind of massive job loss by automation anticipated could be a cataclysmic event. Now, Andrew Yang has, of course, based his entire campaign around this transition, is best known for championing his particular solution. It's a version of universal basic income that he calls the freedom dividend. Yang's approach is certainly the simplest. If people won't be able to earn enough money from wages to live, then just give them money. If people are already trapped in a low-wage, non-union hell where a fear of starvation keeps them from pursuing an actually fulfilling avocation, just give them money. Now, there are a lot of right-wing attacks on this idea that are mostly BS, of course. The concept has been piloted and tested a number of times, including right here in the good old US of A under none other than Richard Nixon. Contrary to right-wing mythology, we do not have to be bludgeoned by managers and threatened with starvation in order to do something other than sit on the couch and eat Cheetos. Instead, when people have extra money, they invest it in themselves. They invest it in their kids. They're more likely actually to stay home with those kids. They're more likely to quit that soul-crushing, inhumane job and do something that actually makes them feel whole and human. Now, when I spoke with Senator Bernie Sanders in Kentucky, I asked him about the threat of automation. It was clear he'd actually thought a lot about it. He told me it was a big problem and deserved a lot more attention than it's been getting. I completely agree. He also offered his own solution, a federal jobs guarantee. Take a listen.
I think most people want to work. They want to be a productive member of society. I think it's a very deeply ingrained feeling that people have. They don't want to sit on the side. Yes, of course, getting a guaranteed income is better than having nothing and sleeping out on the street, that's for sure. But I think people want to be part of our humanity, to be truthful, and how we feel good about ourselves is when we are productive members of our society. We're contributing something. And I think people feel that very strongly. And I think there is more than enough work to be done in so many areas. And our job is to say, if you are able to work, we have a job for you. Because the truth is, we have so much work to do to rebuild this country in so many ways.
So Sanders' critique here of UBI is essentially that there's plenty of work to be done, and also that people will be lost and depressed without work. Now, in one sense, he's right. There is plenty of work to be done that can really uniquely be done by humans. Not all of that work, of course, is economic or market valued in the traditional sense. We need to rebuild our crumbling community institutions. Our babies are sick and our elders need care. The caring professions, of course, have always been devalued in our society because they've historically been the work of women of color. Now, on his view that people will be lost without work, well, it's a little more complicated. On the one hand, it's frankly absurd to think that wage earning is the only way to find meaning and purpose, and it's not what we've done for most of human history. We create, we care, we build, we socialize, we mentor, we cultivate. But the truth is, we do have to recognize the place we are culturally as a society today. Our community institutions and social bonds have frayed to the point where it can be challenging to find meaning and worth outside of that religion of work. Our lives are so separated, so atomized, that we clutch desperately at whatever shred of self-worth comes from our occupation. For me, I have 3 kids. I had about a year where I pretty much just stayed home with them, and it was certainly productive. It was certainly meaningful. But if I'm being honest, it was also extremely lonely and very psychologically difficult because I am so wired to believe that work is the thing that makes me a worthwhile human. All right, so what's my bottom line here? Honestly, I think it's a false choice. I believe that the crisis of despair and plutocracy in this country is so big that there is no tool in our toolbox we should be ruling out. Both of these ideas have as a core goal the thing that I think is essential, which is to democratize power. Yang accomplishes this both through the freedom dividend and also through democracy dollars and other ideas. Burning through increased unionization, of which a federal jobs guarantee is a significant part. Also importantly, both of these ideas fundamentally reject the myth of scarcity, the idea that there's not enough for all people to live decent lives, not just the well-born or those who won some sort of symbolic processing genetic lottery, but everyone. The myth of scarcity is the greatest lie and tool of oppression in the playbook. After all, it is a lot harder to make people conform if you can't threaten starvation and homelessness. So if you're about destroying that myth, if you're about recognizing the worth and humanity of everyone, then I will always be your sister in that fight, whether you are Yang Gang, feeling the burn, or just human. So those are my thoughts on that, Saagar.
Very interesting.